good enough. I've heard my dad say that a lot. We work on some project, nailing up a wall, doing some electrical work, fixing a lawnmower, fixing a backhoe or something like that. And, we didn't always have the right tools. He'd use a wrench for a hammer, he'd use a hammer for a pry bar, he'd use a pry bar for a whatever. Duct tape, sheetrock, screws, baling wire, whatever it took to get the job done now. He didn't want to waste any time. He didn't want to take the time to go to the store, get the right tool. He didn't want to spend the money on the right tool. He just wanted to get the job done. It's good enough. One time, our backhoe broke. The ring and pinion gear went out on this Allis Chalmers backhoe, and so we put it up. And when he went to pull the pinion gear out, all the gears from the transmission just went plop, 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 plop down into the dust. We figured out that the pinion gear was also the shaft that went through the transmission. And a couple days later, we got it all back together, but we never had third gear again. We never quite got the spacers and the shims and the gears all in the right place. So from that point forward, that backhoe never had third gear. It's good enough. Didn't really need third gear anyway. Go right from second to fourth. No big deal. I was thinking about that in relation to my theology and my practices. It's real easy for me to see the similarities between beliefs and practices of other denominations, other faith journeys, other worldviews, people in the faith, out of the faith, believers, unbelievers. It's just really easy for me to see the similarities as opposed to the differences. And I always talk about the gestalt of this, the gestalt of that, and people will argue with me on the finer points of doctrine, which to me, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and I go, it's good enough. I do not have a complete picture of God. I do not see God clearly. Like Paul in 1 Corinthians 13, it's like through a glass darkly. It's a fuzzy image of God that I have. It's not a clear image. And for me to have the arrogance to think that I have it all figured out and that I know exactly what my doctrine is supposed to be and what exactly your doctrine is supposed to be and how we all should practice and how we should all believe, to me, that's just really, really arrogant. Extremely arrogant. And I know that my God will lead me into a place of belief and a place of practice that enables me to know Him in ways like I've never known Him before. And that will alter my practices, and that will alter my beliefs, and that will alter my relationship with Him forever. And others may choose to subscribe to a set form of doctrine because it's a safer place to be. But knowing myself, I see that I'm more of an adventurer and I'm willing to take some risks, and it scares me. I gotta tell you, it scares me because of the lack of accountability, and going off the map can be a very dangerous place to be. There might be lions and tigers and bears out there, and that's really, really scary. And there are false doctrines, and there are false gods, and there are demons, and there are dragons. But I shouldn't be so afraid of the evil as I am craving the good, which is God. And like this book, A Generous Orthodoxy by Brian McLaren, that I'm currently listening to, and he takes a little bit from each and every one and says, this is good about the Methodists, and this is good about the Catholics, and this is good about the Anabaptists, and this part is really good about the Anglicans. And he goes, now they have some dangers and they have some problems, and I don't really like this and this and that, but these things are really good, and I'm going to hang on to them. It's good enough. Now, for a long time, I've heard people preach against a cafeteria-style religion. You can't pick and choose what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe. But the reality is, the denominations of today are made up by people who went through and did a cafeteria-style religion. And they picked and chose what they wanted to conform to, and what they wanted to reform, and what they wanted to rebel against. And we ended up with these religions, these denominations. So, my question is, why can't I do that as an individual if groups have already done that? If I were to find a new understanding of a certain scripture or a new understanding of a certain doctrine, it would take me years of committees and testimony and gatherings and papers and research to convince the powers that be that this was a good thing to include, or a good thing to expand, or a good thing to absorb into our belief practices. And then it would take them years, if not decades, to convince the people to come along with them. And yet, I'm free today to grasp onto new understanding that God gives me in my quiet time with Him. I don't have to convince anybody. I don't have to change anybody. I don't have to fix anybody. I can just adapt to the journey that God has me on. There's nothing wrong with a cafeteria-style religion. There's nothing wrong with it's good as it gets. There's nothing wrong with it's good enough. We can move forward. We can do what we need to do to be faithful and be true to our God.